Hi! Up till now, our users manager page faces a problem related to the performance quality. So, for example, if you click here in order to switch the email confirmed, then you decide to refresh the page, you will get this message, confirm form submission, which considered a misleading message as the user knows for sure that he didn't fill any form or submit it. Also, if he decides to click here and delete the user, he will face the same problem, the confirm form submission. So instead, we will re-engineer our page here. So if you want to confirm a user by clicking here and, for example, refresh our page, we will face no problem. And if we click on delete, we will get this decent confirmation message. And if we click delete and refresh our page again, we will face no problem. So let's go ahead and start. So the first thing I will do is to open the account folder and locate the users manager page, double click it and pin it, and also locate the users manager.js, which is plugged inside this file here. Okay, now let's go here to our grid view inside the users manager page, and let's locate the email confirmation field. This is the email confirmed here. Okay, now let's do some changes here on that field. First, by changing this link button to a hyperlink. So I will type here hyperlink. Since there will be no code behind page for this one, I changed it from a link button to a hyperlink in order not to make any postbacks. The ID will be useless here. Run at server, leave it as it is, CSS class. The command name will be useless as well. And since the command name will be useless, if you press F7 here, I will go to the GVW users raw command action and delete it, as it will be useless from now on. The command argument also will be useless. Okay. Span, and I will delete this span, it's useless as well. It's useless in either cases, hyperlink or link button, it will be useless. Let's first test the design. So let's refresh the page first. And now if you hover here, you will see that the cursor has a text shape instead of the pointer. And the reason is that this link doesn't refer to any URL at the moment. And the problem here is that this will give the user the impression that this is just an info instead of a clickable button. So many people will type here navigate URL equals hash. For me, I don't prefer to do like that, as doing so will cause this hyperlink to be marked as visited or active. So its color will maintain like this, which will be misleading, and moreover, in case when you scroll away from the top of the page, clicking the button will move your focus back to the top and make you get lost. So instead, I prefer to write, instead of navigate URL, style equals cursor pointer. Okay, but note first that this hyperlink has only two possibilities for the class, either false or true. Now let's go to the web services folder and open the file identity.asmx we have already created before. I will add a function now, or a method, let's say, called switch email confirmed, and this method will only have one parameter called, let's say, user ID. Okay, now let's move this line here, and I will dim my user, and again I will use the link language lambda expression db.users.single user function m or whatever m.id equals user ID. Okay, now I will type here if my user dot email confirmed equals true, then switch it to false. My user dot email confirmed equals false, else my user dot email confirmed equals true. And don't forget to save changes. Okay, now let's go back to the users manager.js and let's add an click event here for all the hyperlinks which have the class false or all the hyperlinks which have the class true. Function, anonymous function, then start typing the code. Remember the post function? The post function requires the path of this file in addition to the method name. So I will type here jQuery.post, Control V, and the method's name will be equal to switch email confirmed. Now to the parameters. The user ID parameter for that function, the user ID, will get the value of the user ID. How can it get the value of the user ID from the grid view? Let's go back to the users manager.aspx and add here a very important information inside something called data, for example user ID. So data user ID equals eval of the user ID. Okay, so if we go back here, I will type, by the way, don't type this dot data user ID, because this in that case refers to the post function itself. Instead, we want this to refer to the hyperlink itself. So at the beginning you should define a variable called, for example, switcher, and I prefer to prefix it with a $sign to give me the indication whenever I forget what was this variable for, that this variable represents a jQuery element. So let's type switcher equals this. Okay, because before the post function this refers to the hyperlink. Now I will type switcher dot data user ID. Okay, now to the third parameter, function. What will happen in the success case? This is what will happen, and then close the post function. Now let's type here what will happen. The first thing is that I want to switch this class. If, for example, someone click here, I want to switch the class from false to true. So if you do that, this is what you will get. The button will change its color from red to green, but it will not change its contents from no to yes. So let's see how can we do that. I will type here switcher, and I will do a smart thing here. Instead of using the if, I will type toggle class true. In this case, if this element has got already the true class, it will lose it, whereas if it doesn't have it, the true class will be added. And also toggle class false. Okay, so this will toggle only the class from true to false or vice versa. Now let's see how to switch the hyperlink text from yes to no and vice versa. In this case, we can't avoid using the if statement. So let's start by typing if switcher dot text equals true, then what will happen? Switcher dot text content will be switched to, type here yes, the switcher dot text will be switched to no. Else what will happen? The switcher dot text will be switched to yes instead. Okay, makes sense. Now let's save all. Let's, by the way, rebuild our project since we have changed something here on the code. So let's rebuild it. Refresh. Okay, here we go. Now let's click on that button, for example. Nothing happens. So let's investigate what is the problem. Right click, inspect, and let's see here data-user ID. Can you notice here that the user ID is typed in a small case letters, despite the fact that we have already typed the data-user ID in a various letter cases? So we can tell that there is a kind of rule here says that any HTML property will be rendered inside the browser in small case letters no matter what. So there is no use here to type from the beginning user ID in capital and small letters, and you have to make changes here and type user ID instead of capital letters and small letters. Now let's save all. Let's refresh our page. Click here. Okay, now it's working properly. However, I want to add a professional touch here. Sometimes when the user clicks here, the server may not respond immediately. Maybe because the user has a slow internet connection. So if we don't give the user an indication that his command is being processed, he might think that his browser is hanged, then decides to refresh the page with no reason. So let's now see how to add a temporary HTML element to act as a processing indicator. This element could be a span, has just text written inside it, or even an animated GIF like a sand clock, for example. So whenever the user clicks this button, I want to add an element here, for example says please wait. So in order to do that, I will define something called please wait. I will create a brand new element as a span tag, okay, and I will give it here some styles. So style equals display. Sorry, I have to flip here since I use double quotations at the beginning, I have to use a quotation here. Display equals block, in order to force the new element to be displayed underneath the button. So display block, and I will type here at the middle please wait. Then the next step will be to insert this element immediately after the hyperlink, which we have already given it the name switcher. Now let's save all. Let's refresh our browser. Now when we click the button, the message appears as expected, but it never disappears even after the process done. So after this process done successfully, we should detach the please wait. So dot detach, and please don't type dot hide, because dot hide will make it hidden, and if the user clicks here again, JavaScript will create a new element called please wait, and you may end up with 10 please waits inside the same table cell. Okay, so please wait dot detach in order to remove it completely from the DOM context. Now let's refresh our page and let's click here. Now you can see it's just blinking in a fraction of a second because our server is very fast at the moment. Now let's move to our next task, which is the delete button. First of all, I will go to the identity.asmx and I will copy this method, and here I will type delete user. I will maintain everything as it is, and except I will delete those lines here. So now before I delete the user, this user might have a picture saved on the server. So I will type here first, you make sure that you import the system.input output, and then I will type file dot delete my user dot picture. And don't forget that the user might have a picture comes from the Facebook, for example. In this case you will get a runtime error. So in order to avoid that, I will use the try clause here. So if the try fail, don't worry, nothing will happen. Now let's type db.users.remove my user. Now db.save changes. Okay, but wait, I think I have done a fatal mistake here, as I have to type server.mapPath. Now let's go here to the users manager first, and let's transfer this link button, which is responsible on deleting the user, from being a link button to a hyperlink. So hyperlink, and the ID is not important at all. Causes validation, not important. Command name, not important. On client click, not important, but I will leave it at the moment. It will be useless, but I will leave it as it is. Now I have to add one important thing, or let me say two important things here. The first thing is I want to give it a class in order to be able to invoke it in the JavaScript code. So I will give it a CSS class equals, for example, delete user, okay, or any class of your choice. So this is a CSS class. And another thing, I will give it a data dash user ID equals eval of ID. So let's now say I will copy this one. So instead of this I will type dot any delete user class when got clicked do the following. And by the way, I will use the post again, and I will type the same address again and change only from switch email confirm to delete user. Okay, since we are going to use this path a lot in our code, I will copy this path up till here, and I will make it easy for myself by type here var identity, for example, equals. Now instead of typing this long path here, I will type identity plus the method name, okay. And here as well, instead of the all of this URL, I will type identity plus the method name, and so on. So in our new function here, I will define a new, so delete button equals this, okay. Then the next step is post function identity plus the function name delete user. Then moving to the next parameter, the next parameter will be exactly as here. So the third parameter will be anonymous function. Let's go here and start by typing. I want, when I click here this button, for example, I want to select the entire table row which contains this button, which is here. So if I go up on the hierarchy until I reach here, I want to select this row and simply delete it. So how can I do that? I will use here a very smart jQuery selector called, so delete button first dot closest. So the closest function will search inside the ancestors of the current element until it finds an ancestor called tr. Once it finds this ancestor, it will detach it. So we can say that the closest function is the opposite of the jQuery find function, as the first one searches among the ancestors of the element, whereas the second one searches among its children. And by the way, we have here on client click the confirmation message. Let's see if this confirmation message will work. We have, by the way, to rebuild our project first. Okay, now let's refresh our form. Now when you click here, seems that we have a problem here. Let's go to the console and let's see what is the source of the problem. Switcher is not defined. We have missed here something called var. Okay, switcher here should be the delete button. Let's save all. Let's refresh. Now let's click here, and the user will get deleted immediately without any confirmation. Why? Because since this is a JavaScript code and this is a JavaScript code, we can't control which one will be executed first. So in order to make sure which one will be executed first, I will go ahead and cut this code I typed here all together and remove the on-client click, then go to the JavaScript and type here before everything this confirmation. Okay, save all. Okay, let's click here. Okay, we got the confirmation message, but we want the confirmation message to appear more professionally. So I will take advantage here of the jQuery UI confirmation dialog, or let me say the jQuery UI dialog. So let's first go to the jQuery UI documentation and locate something here called dialog, and let's see the example here. So the example says that in order to activate the dialog plugin, there is an element here has the ID of dialog, which is this element, and if you want this dialog to appear when the page load, type the dialog method directly inside the onload function. So I will copy this div element and I will paste it here. I will go all the way down. It's not necessary to add it at the end of the form, but I will add it here in order to be able to locate it. So I will paste here the dialog, Control K, Control D. Then I will give the dialog the ID of dialog, for example, delete user. Okay, and the title will be delete confirmation. Okay, and then I will type here R. Let's say instead of typing, go here the confirmation from the JavaScript. So I will copy this confirmation here. Okay, however, if you click on save all and refresh the page, you will find that the div element is here by default. It's not hidden. It's supposed to show when you click the delete button. So in order to avoid making this div element displayed all the time, I will type here style equals display none. Okay, so this dialog will be hidden by default, and if you go to the users manager.js, then try to imitate the example as it is, and inside the onload function, if you type here .dialog, save changes, this is what you get. The dialog will be shown once the page loaded, and of course this is not what we want. So I will cut this from here. I will make the dialog appear once the delete user is clicked. So I will go here and type dialog delete user .dialog. Then inside this dialog I will add the options. So if you return back, this is just the basic example. You have to go to the view source, the API documentation, in order to see all the properties and methods inside this plugin. And one of the options here is the buttons. So if you go to the buttons, you can see here that you can add a list of buttons, and this is what I'm going to do here. I will add something called buttons, and the first button, delete, it will have the name of delete, and when it clicked, a function will take place. So what this function will do literally, it will execute the post function. So I will type comma, and the other button will be cancel. So the cancel button will only get this dialog to be closed. So the cancel has a function which says this, and this here refers to the confirmation div element. So this .dialog close, and don't forget that we have to copy this line and paste it here also. So when the user confirms by clicking delete, the form will execute the command and then closes. But first, before we run our page, let's add some styling here. For example, I will add a font awesome icon here at the beginning of Are You Sure? So in order to do that, I will go here and type span class equals font awesome warning, and I will add a class also called text text danger, for example, and let's add also a style here, for example, margin, in order to keep a space between this one and the text that it follows. So margin right equals 15 pixels, and I think that will do the job. So let's save all. Okay, let's refresh our page. Now when you click any user here, this confirmation message will appear. Okay, but there is a lot of space here. I will change this one from 15 pixel, maybe 5 pixels will be enough. Okay, I will also increase the font size. So the font size, I think 18 pixels will be great. Okay, so let's apply those couple styles here. So 5 pixels, and the font size will be equal to 18 pixels. Save changes. Let's refresh. Great. However, I have two comments here over the dialog's display. First, the dialog is resizable, and this behavior doesn't suit the confirmation messages. And second, the user can still interact with the background page while the dialog is still open. So he can even click the delete button for another user. So I want to give it additional properties here. So before the button or after it, it doesn't matter. I will type here modal. So the property modal will be set to true, and the resizable property will be set to false. And if you want to control the height, you can set the height here, for example, to 190 pixels. Let's see if this is suitable. Now let's save all. Let's refresh our page. Let's click here. Maybe I shouldn't type pixels here. So only 190 and without quotations. Let's save all. Refresh again. Okay, now it's working. So if you try to react with the page behind, you can't. If you try to resize this message box, you can't. If you click cancel, you will cancel the command. If you click delete, you will confirm. Maybe we have an error here, so let's go to the console. Let's click delete again. There is internal server error here. Let's revise what we have done. So I got it. We have to define this var delete button before everything. So this here, in this on this context, this means the dialog box. So instead I will cut this one and paste it here just before we invoke the dialog command. So I'm sure that this time it will work without any problems. Let's refresh. Let's click here. Let's delete. Bingo. But the dialog is not closing. I don't know what is the reason. I guess I know the problem. The problem is that this .dialog close is referring to something else. It's referring to the post function, not the dialog box. So I will cut it from here and paste it outside the post method. Now it should work properly. If we save all and go here, let's refresh and let's delete this one, for example. Okay, now it's working properly. Thanks for watching. If you like the video, please press like.